You're not supposed to be here. That's what went through my head the moment I stepped into that boardroom. Just a cleaning lady, right? But what really stopped me cold wasn't those words. It was the sound of a desperate man in a $1,000 suit butchering French in front of a room full of investors. And not just any investors. This was a $200 million deal on the line, and the CEO's translation software had just turned annual growth into something about cows flying to invest in cat food. I swear, you couldn't script a bigger disaster if you tried. For 2 years, I was invisible here. Just the shy girl who emptied the trash and wiped down windows, seen by nobody except Marjorie, the world's kindest 63-year-old supervisor who left me oatmeal cookies wrapped in napkins by my locker. She'd worked for the Brooks family long before she worked for Nexus One, and she always said, "Child, you got more languages in your head than the United Nations." That made me laugh. Nobody else here had a clue I could read, let alone translate 3 languages on the fly. Marjorie said I'd know when it was time to step up, but I learned the hard way that being invisible keeps you safe, especially after Derek Smith vanished with my brother's last hope and every dollar I'd saved. Funny thing, though, trauma doesn't always keep you hiding forever. So, there I was, frozen in the doorway, watching this Derek Langford, same man, different name, sweating bullets in front of the French investors, his whole act falling apart while the CEO, Elliot Brooks, looked like he was about to lose everything his father built. I caught the French lead investor muttering, "They don't even respect us enough to bring a real translator," and his partner whispering about leaving before lunch. That's when it happened. I felt something crack open inside me. I'd spent years telling myself to keep quiet, not to make waves. But I couldn't watch this crash and burn. Maybe because I saw that look in Elliot's eyes, that same look I remembered from another lifetime, right before everything went wrong. "Excuse me," I said, barely more than a whisper. The whole room went dead silent. "The translation's wrong," I told them, and when Derek tried to brush me off, I just kept going. "He's talking about growth projections, not flying cows. And that cat food part? He meant business strategies. Your software mixed up croissants and annual growth. It's a common French-English thing." That got the French delegation's attention, and the room shifted hard. The lead investor, Dubosi, turned to me, rapid-fire French, testing whether I really knew my stuff. I answered in French, explaining not just what the presentation was supposed to say, but what it meant, weaving in their business culture, their skepticism, the kind of trust it takes to do deals across an ocean. I was shaking, sure, but the more I talked, the more I realized how much I missed feeling useful, feeling seen. Elliot watched like he was seeing a ghost, and Derek, he just kept getting paler, sweat beading on his forehead. The French started leaning in, asking questions, and for the first time all morning, it felt like a real conversation. Not just words, but connection. Yeah. You know what I mean. The meeting kept rolling, and when Elliot finally asked how I knew French so well, I told him. Columbia University. Masters in Cross-Cultural Communication. There was a flicker of something between us, like he'd just recognized me from a dream. Derek, on the other hand, nearly choked on his water when I mentioned my credentials, and I could see him piecing it together. This was the same Grace Williams he'd ripped off 5 years and a lifetime ago that he tried to belittle me in front of everyone. I'm sure our cleaning staff has other things to do, but Dubosi shut that down quick. "Miss Turner has shown more respect for our culture in 10 minutes than your software did in an hour," he said. And the way he looked at me, you'd think I'd saved his company, not just his meeting. Afterwards, Dubosi pulled me aside, handed me his personal business card. "If this company doesn't recognize what they've got, call me. We could use someone like you in Paris." Derek saw the whole thing and went into panic mode. He cornered me by the windows after the room cleared, calling me by my old name, whispering about the investment scam, desperate to cover his tracks. It was almost sad if it hadn't been so infuriating. I clean toilets for minimum wage. "Derek, what do you think you can take from me now?" I said, and that's when Elliot stepped out from behind the corner. He'd heard enough. "Take your hands off her," he said, and suddenly Derek didn't look so powerful. Elliot told him to prepare an explanation for the board, and that was that. Except it wasn't. When Elliot asked what Derek meant about my brother, the truth came pouring out. I told him about Michael, my sweet, funny brother who only wanted to be a teacher, about the experimental cancer treatment insurance wouldn't cover, about how I'd trusted Derek to help us and lost everything instead. The last thing my brother said to me was, "I'm sorry you spent everything trying to save me." I told Elliot, and I could see in his eyes that it hit him somewhere deep. And then, a twist I never saw coming. Elliot started asking questions about my past, about the Regency Hotel, about a charity gala 15 years ago where he almost drowned as a kid, and a girl saved him. I realized, all at once, that had been me, a scared 12-year-old foster kid, diving in to pull a stranger out of a pool, then vanishing before anyone could say thank you. "Grace Williams," he whispered, "you saved my life." The shock, the wonder, it was like fate itself had been biding its time for this moment. But that wasn't even the last surprise. I told Elliot what I discovered about Derek. He wasn't just a con man. He'd been selling company secrets for months, and I'd been gathering evidence every night after hours. Photos, emails, voice recordings. Turns out, being invisible has its perks. I told Elliot I hadn't come forward sooner because the last time I trusted someone in power, I lost everything. He promised me that wouldn't happen again. The next morning, Derek Langford was walked out of the building by security, the FBI on his trail, and every dollar he'd stolen frozen in a Cayman Islands account. But the real victory wasn't revenge. It was the sense of the air being cleansed, of something broken being finally set right. Elliot called an emergency meeting and introduced me, right there in front of everyone, from the boardroom big shots to Marjorie and the cleaning crew, announcing me as the new director of international communications and cultural bridge building. It was a role created just for me, recognizing not just my skills, but everything I'd endured. The applause was thunderous, but honestly, I was thinking about my brother and Marjorie, and every night I'd made myself small just to survive. When I spoke, I told them, being quiet doesn't mean being weak. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is watch, listen, and act when it matters most. And I meant it, every single word. After the meeting, Elliot gave me back something I'd lost years ago, a tarnished junior lifeguard medal from the YMCA, the one I'd earned the summer before I saved his life. "Keep it," I said, "but know that you saved me too." Maybe that's what family really means. Not blood, but the people who dive in to save you when you're drowning, again and again. 6 months later, I stood in the same boardroom, but this time I was leading the international meeting. The deal with the French had sparked connections around the world. The shy girl who'd cleaned floors was gone. I was Grace Williams Brooks now, adopted daughter, bridge builder, survivor. Home at last. You never know who might change your life. Sometimes it's the person you least expect, maybe even someone who's been quietly saving you all along. If this story moved you, share it. Tell us in the comments, what does justice look like to you? Have you ever been underestimated? Like, subscribe, and join us for more stories about second chances and quiet heroes. Because in a world that celebrates the loudest voices, sometimes the most important words are whispered by the bravest souls.